Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Suitcase and Chardonnay podcast, an extension of my blog by the same name. I'm your host, Renate Engelbrecht, and here we talk all things lifestyle, travel, fashion, food, and wine. Probably one of the most authentic ways in which to step back in time, Babylonstoren Soetmelksvlei is a South African bucket list item like no other. This working farm showcases what farm life was like in the 19th century, allowing one to explore and learn more about various skills that have mostly been forgotten. From enjoying freshly baked roosterkoek and farm bread with flour milled at their on-site water-powered mill, to exploring the beautifully curated farmhouse with its tangible stories and transporting scents, it's an incredible live display of South African heritage one needs to visit at least once. I sat down with Babylonstoren's very own museologist, Elsa Vogts, to learn more about the experience before I headed out there myself, and also got to learn a little bit more about her involvement in other exciting projects at Babylonstoren. This morning I am with Elsa Vogts. Is that's the correct pronunciation? Yeah. She is a museologist. Museologist. At Babylonstoren, and we are in their beautiful tasting room. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
I'm so excited to hear everything about what you do at Babylonstoren and your role here, and just how you bring slow living into the whole experience at Babylonstoren. So just first of all, what does it entail to be the museologist at Babylonstoren?
So museology is basically all about the study and the development of museums. So we are very fortunate at Babylonstoren to now in our stable have almost three museums on the farm and adjacent to the farm. Mm-hmm. And my role here is to basically develop those projects and make sure that we have our guests enjoy them to the best of our ability.
So that's incredible.
Yeah, exactly.
So the three museums, what are they?
So we next to the tasting room we built the first museum, which is called the Story of Wine, and there we tell basically the story of wine. And the space was designed in such a way to have everybody, whether you're sort of a wine aficionado or someone who doesn't know anything about wine, that anybody who goes in there can really appreciate the beautiful space and understand a little bit more about both the sort of history and the culture and the science of wine and winemaking.
Okay.
And it's been a wonderful addition to the tasting room experience. It offers a whole different sort of creative space that our guests can enjoy, in addition to our sort of cellar tours and the tastings in the tasting room. So it really adds to the whole experience.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then next we developed Soetmelksvlei, which opened last year. We've been going about a year now.
Okay.
And I think that really, truly embraces the slow ethos that you speak of. And Soetmelksvlei is a sort of a living farm craft experience where we show visitors what slow farm living would have been like in the 19th century. So we like to say that we take our visitors back in time to a period where people really worked with their hands and to explore all of these crafts and activities that really take you to a sort of an appreciation for true handcraft, really, which is very exciting. And then we're working on just launching a new little Byzantium, which is a little bee museum.
Oh, wow.
Which is really exciting. We've just opened, and that's going to be spectacular.
Oh, wow. I'm very curious about that. For some other reason, I have this fascination with bees, and it's so funny because my son is actually allergic to bees. Yeah, so I always try and tell him it's just, you need to be respectful towards them because they have a very big role to play in the ecosystem. Exactly. So we respect them, but we
Yeah.
stay away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Soetmelksvlei is the one thing that I am going to be experiencing
Exactly.
today. And what are the things that you would suggest people keep an eye out for when they go to Soetmelksvlei, and how does it work? How do you get there, and what's the process?
Okay, so Soetmelksvlei is positioned adjacent to Babylonstoren on a sort of a next door farm, a neighboring farm. So visitors can either book online or they can book a ticket at our ticket office. And from there, you move on to a vehicle, sort of a safari type vehicle that then transports you within 20 minutes to the farm Soetmelksvlei. So
Okay.
it's really, it's quite an amazing experience, and you hear stories about everything that you see around you as you are sort of transported back in time. And then once you get there, there is so much to do. I always tell people at least half a day. So bargain on at least 4 hours because it truly is it's actually a full day
Yeah.
experience. You
Yeah.
can keep busy for a whole day, especially if you have kids. So there's really something for everyone. From the farm animals are a huge hit, and we have some nice activities around them. So interactions with our cows. There's also ox wagon for the kids to ride on around the farmyard,
Oh,
which is
cool.
amazing.
Okay.
Then we have our workshop where we have a working a blacksmith and carpenter and leatherwork craftsman, and they
Okay.
all show you the things that they are making, and they're also working to restore and repair things on the farm, which is quite wonderful. On Saturdays, we also do wagon wheel making,
Oh,
which is quite
wow.
amazing, something that very few people in South Africa still do.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's quite amazing. We have a working water mill that was built according to specifications, from that time period, which is amazing. So we mill all the flour that gets used on the farm. We mill ourselves,
Wow.
which is quite special.
Yeah.
And we also have our magnificent manor house, which looks exactly as a farmhouse would have done in the 19th century. And there
Okay.
you can taste proper farm bread with butter and traditional moerkoffie and tea, to really immerse yourself in this sort of and provide a bit of a more sensory experience. I think the role of the senses in slow tourism is a big factor, because we
Yeah.
really you know it takes time to sort of disconnect from your devices and emails
Yeah.
oftentimes, and I
Yeah.
think sensory interactions like these really bring
Yeah,
that to life,
absolutely.
in a
Yeah.
different way.
Yeah, and apart from that, I think it also has a lot of stories to tell,
Exactly.
especially if it takes you back to, a previous century.
Exactly.
Then it's
Yeah.
quite special, and it's also a way to connect with other people and create conversation around something that you don't necessarily talk about every day.
Exactly. It's actually always so interesting. So many visitors, when they step into the doorway of the farmhouse, they immediately say, "This looks exactly like my grandmother's house on the farm." So it's so
Oh,
wonderful to hear stories
yeah.
from our visitors and to hear this tremendous positive feedback. That we're trying to sort of bring to life memories for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. It creates nostalgia around something that, for South Africans specifically, I suppose, it creates that sense of nostalgia. But also, what have you found? What's the feedback from international guests, for example, visiting?
So they absolutely adore it. I think it's been really interesting for me to see how international visitors enjoy Soetmelksvlei. I think just because it's so unique. It's unique to South Africa. There aren't many sort of living farm. We don't call ourselves a museum quite intentionally, because we, don't have a sort of massive collection of historical artifacts, but we are an experience, and I think that it's really unique in the way that
Yeah.
you can also learn the handcraft. So what's also quite nice about Soetmelksvlei is we offer, in conjunction with Babylonstoren, an amazing program of workshops where
Okay.
visitors can come and learn a specific handcraft. So everything from crochet to quilting to leatherwork, making a sort of wooden milk stool,
Oh,
So
wow.
there are a number of really great workshops that offer you a bit of an extended period where you really get to get your hands dirty and learn
Yes.
these new skills, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
quite amazing.
What do you think are the benefits of doing something like that and working with your hands and learning a craft that has almost died, I think?
It's true. I think there are a number of incredible benefits. I think it's a way to keep the crafts alive, but it gives a lot of people an incredible amount of confidence to learn a new skill that they can say I made this,
Yes, yeah.
and I think that's so incredibly valuable. And it's another thing that I always like to refer back to is that people's sort of memories and learnings work in different ways. So a lot of people are more they learn through touch or through making.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think where you can oftentimes go into a museum and it's only visual or it's only auditory or whatever, learning through making just adds a whole other level of sort of uh, um, the Afrikaans word would be vastlegging, but to
Yes,
really
yeah.
truly to know a
Yes.
certain subject or to know a craft, you kind of have to learn by doing.
Yeah, yeah. So you work with things that kind of take you back into the past. Um, what are the things that you are looking forward to for Babylonstoren? Are there other new things that you have in the back of your mind that you would like to do?
Always, we're always quite secretive about Babylonstoren about
Of course,
of
yes.
all our new projects, but I think there's some really exciting developments in the world of museums that we keep our eyes on. So there's always, and I think the one thing that I've learned working with sort of a historical subject. So I don't come from a history background, which is also something I always like to point out.
Okay.
I'm not a historian, counter to what most people might think. But oftentimes when you look at history and you examine history and you experience a place like Soetmelksvlei, you learn a lot of things that you apply to the future. So not necessarily learning from mistakes, but learning from the way that history progressed over time.
Yeah.
It helps you
Yeah.
to sort of think about how do we want to handle the future? How do we want to make the world a better place?
Yeah. Yeah.
Knowing what we know.
Yeah, that's so interesting that I didn't realize you didn't come from a background with history.
Yeah.
What is your background then?
Art. I actually come from an
Okay,
art
okay.
background, design and art. Did a lot of work in the art field.
Okay.
And when I ended up at Babylonstoren, I basically, a museologist really has to be able to be flexible enough to work with any subject from
Yes.
wine to bees to
Yeah, yeah,
history.
yeah. And obviously,
So
your creativity kind of helps to curate all of that and to make it so special. Yeah.
exactly. So it's all about, at the end of the day, storytelling. You really need to be able to take the subject and sort of also condense the vast amount that you can sort of learn from it
Yeah.
into a sort of a manageable, sort of palatable
Yeah.
amount
Yes.
that the average person or the average. And it also, what's always interesting to me is designing experiences for kids and for adults and for sort of older generations and for younger
Yeah.
generations. It really that's always a nice challenge to me, is to sort of figure out what will everybody enjoy
Yeah,
learning
yeah,
about a
to
certain
package it in the
subject.
right
Yeah,
way and
yeah.
to, yeah, that's fascinating. I'm wondering also, like, for the kids, for example, how do you do the storytelling for them? Is it pretty much just through experience? Is it,
Yeah, so actually for the kids coming to Soetmelksvlei, all of the activities that we do and demonstrations that we do on the farm are really sort of, they're immersive and they love them. We do a milk separation where we have an old separator that we show them how the milk separates from the cream, which is something you'd never see anymore.
Yeah.
The interactions with the animals. But then we also created 2 dedicated kids spaces for sort of the younger kids, for them to just play. Obviously, play is so important for kids'
Yes.
development. So
Yeah.
we, in the sort of the museum building that we call the Old Cellar, we, on the whole left side, we developed a wing where they can, we have a sort of a miniature manor house or farmhouse that we sort of mirrored on the actual farmhouse at Soetmelksvlei,
Okay.
where they can play. There's a play kitchen, there's a little nook
that's
to
so
read,
cool.
and then there's a massive trampoline bed that they can jump on with cushions. And then we have a beautiful upstairs sort of attic space with these gigantic vegetable cushions that are just so fun to play with. So that's our indoor space. Obviously, in the winter, we need spaces to keep our kids occupied.
Yeah.
And then in the summer, we also have all year round, we've got an outdoor play area that sits right next to the outside area of the restaurant.
Okay.
So parents can sit and relax and have a glass of wine, and their kids can jewel in the play area. There's sand, there's water, there's a trampoline, there's a
amazing.
slide, and it's all modeled. The sort of the theme of that is sort of also the farmyard. So we've got
Yes.
sort of
Yeah.
cows that you can milk, and
Yeah.
there's lots of things to play with out there. There's also a little water wheel that the kids can play with. So we really focused on sort of building the experience so that families can come, especially with small kids, and really enjoy the outdoors and enjoy all of these and enjoy history in a different way.
Yes, yeah. So Soetmelksvlei, do you have accommodation there as well, or do people come and stay at Babylonstoren and then just go for the
Yes,
day?
yeah, no, so we only take day visitors, and
Okay.
but we have a lot of our hotel guests enjoy coming to Soetmelksvlei. I think it's a wonderful new offering for them
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Soetmelksvlei is a wonderful celebration of ingenuity and self-sufficiency, honoring the legacy of artistry and a place to spend the day at with your family. It's a wonderful day trip for families with more than enough space for kids to run around and explore, whilst also offering a comprehensive educational experience for adults at the same time. They even host workshops for guests to take part in, as Elsa mentioned, which has proven to be quite popular. And when those little tummies start rumbling, you can merely walk over to the Old Stables restaurant for a feast of note. Whether you're looking for an escape from reality or want to show your kids what slow living really means, Soetmelksvlei is most definitely worth the visit. To find out more, visit Babylonstoren.com. And if you do get to go, let me know what you thought. You know I always love hearing from the Suitcase and Chardonnay family. Next week, I share some exciting news from Taj Hotels, so be sure to stay in the loop by subscribing to the podcast wherever you're listening. Until next time!